Are the Browns anywhere in there?
Nope, it's just
Nope.
these four left. It's just these four left. So it's the
Okay.
Eagles, the 49ers, Chiefs, and Bengals.
Yeah.
Chiefs,
Chiefs, okay, versus
49ers.
49ers. Okay, that's a good choice. Everybody do like this, like we're all yelling at each other. That's crazy.
On.
Yeah, go ahead,
All right.
go ahead and do it. Let's look
Okay,
for
all right. All right. Hi, and welcome to the Johnny Random Show. Today's episode, we talked about corruption. We talked about Paul Pelosi getting attacked. We talked about Tyre Nichols, the beating him happened in Memphis. We talked about Turkey invading Syria. We talked about tanks going to Ukraine. We talked about evangelicals possibly leaving Trump in the latest polls. We talked about Shapiro versus Crowder, the whole debate going on there, and finally wrapped up with Pence's, the classified documents found in Mike Pence's office. So you will enjoy all of the topics today. It's a long episode, but definitely worth it. Alrighty, so we'll just start out with my prediction for the Super Bowl. I have placed it behind me. I think it's going to be the Bengals and the 49ers. So that is my choice for this. And we will find out tomorrow who's actually going to the Super Bowl, since I like making wild predictions based on very limited data. That's just my thing. So throw that in at the beginning of this. And but also to the other reason I did that is going to start with Brett Favre, or Favre, or however we decided to say it. We couldn't figure out.
Barb.
Favre, yes, who was the former quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, one of the most famous quarterbacks to come out of Mississippi for sure, was involved in a scandal that where they funneled Medicaid funds into a slush fund, basically, that the governor and he used to, like, with speaking fees, to get money from that, and funneled it into like his daughter's, like, building a new stadium and all sorts of sort of like personal pet projects. And so it was basically stealing from that fund. So
Stealing from the poor to fund the rich.
yeah, the thing about it though is I guess Mississippi politics is very red, as you would assume, and many know. And with, Brett Favre is very much connected to the Republican side of things over there, but this scandal is really hurting the governor, obviously. And so there it looks like the Democratic candidate that they're putting up looks like in a really strong position to turn Mississippi blue. So that would be sort of a strange thing to think about, but when you mess things up so bad, kind of hurts you politically. I don't know. Was that anything you guys were tracking? I know that I added that to our list kind of late. Anybody had any thoughts on that?
I believe that probably the last governor that was a Democrat was Mavis, who was a one-time big time loser in Mississippi. Yeah, he kind of turned the whole state just against Democrats, because they traditionally, well, previously were Democrats.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was bad, and then Obama put him in charge of the Navy. How great was that, huh? So some bad things have come from Mavis and Mississippi.
Politics.
Mississippi politics, yeah.
Yeah,
So
Mississippi politics, unfortunately, is a mess. It's not got a lot of home runs for sure. But also,
What about touchdowns?
I mean, record setting there, record setting. So, and speaking of corruption, that kind of wanted to tie that into. So back last year, there was a big push for this stock ban, and I think we talked about it on this channel a little bit.
We did.
And it was kind of a real grassroots like push. And obviously, a lot of people, members of Congress, weren't really pushing to ban themselves from stocks. And so, but they pushed it through. They took a lot of the teeth out, as I understand it, and kind of watered the bill down, as you kind of expect for it to happen. And then a lot of people have kind of brought it up this week because a couple days ago, Nancy Pelosi sold like millions of dollars of Google stocks. And then turns out the next day, the Senate passes this antitrust lawsuit, or the DOJ files antitrust lawsuit against Google. And so to break it up as a monopoly, which I think is a fantastic move that, that the DOJ is taking. And I very much support that. I think that's a positive sign, but it just sort of like reinforces this, like, oh yeah, you had insider knowledge, obviously, on what the DOJ was going to do, and you sold your stocks, and then there's this lawsuit. So it's just like, it's another way of obvious corruption, and they shouldn't be allowed to do this. I mean, like, it's insider trading. You have knowledge before it becomes public. And so it shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be allowed. And you can't, it's a part of your job. It's a function of your job to know these things. And so you can't just say, oh, we should take, you shouldn't have that knowledge, so I don't think that's fair to say. And then
Well,
also
it's trust breaking too. So it's one of those
Exactly.
things where we can't trust them, and they're in charge of antitrust, and it's really kind of circular.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brain is trying to go through the lady who does cooking person who sold her stock. What was her
What
name?
was her name?
Betty Crocker?
Barbara Walters? No.
No,
not Barbara
no, no,
Walters.
no.
Betty Crocker? I don't know.
No. She's got a show with Snoop Dogg right now about baking marijuana into stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah.
I can't remember her.
What?
What's her name? Why are we
Martha Stewart.
Martha
Martha
Stewart.
Stewart.
Martha Stewart?
That's, yeah, I was about to
She
Google it.
went to
since we're
jail.
about Google.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, we was about to Google it to find out.
She's 81 years old.
Another sort of ironic thing, Google was all for like breaking up Ticketmaster because it's a monopoly, and all the stuff going on with Taylor Swift is the big case where she brought to public attention about how they own everything. They own the resale markets, they own everything. And so how is that a fair playing field? And so yeah, I'm throwing a bunch of stuff in here, and we can kind of circle back. I just want to touch one more topic and then kind of open the floor for everybody kind of get their
Circle back
piece
Saki.
in. And yes, circle back Saki. And then that would be the Pelosi, the attack that happened on Paul Pelosi. The video was just released, and it was I watched it as part of the thing, and it was very clear that he broke into the house, and the call, he was trying to be very subliminal, and this person was obviously mentally unstable, and so he's very much trying to keep himself from being hurt. And then when the police showed up was when the attack happened. And so he was yeah, it's awful to watch. Yeah, which puts to bed a lot of rumors that people were like, why was he talking to this person like he knew him, and like, why was he acting like this was nothing serious, and then he gets attacked. The story's not making up, and there was all sorts of conspiracies going around, but I think it's fairly clear from the visual of what exactly is going on. You're able to put the story together and put some of these conspiracies to rest, and I think that's just a horrible thing that happened to him. Obviously, he's his profession is stock trading, and he was probably the one that sold that stock, which I think is awful, unethical, but I don't think anybody obviously deserves to be attacked by a hammer. I mean, I think that should be outside the bounds of, what should be happening to anyone, much less politicians. So I know we just shotgun a lot of things. You guys sprinkled in some comments. Jason, do you have anything on any of those that you saw this week? Add color.
Yeah, I saw the Pelosi attack video, and it did look like he was trying to it did look like Paul was trying to calm the situation down a lot by his words. I would have been a lot more nervous than he was at the time. So hey, the fact that he stayed, and he said something like that this guy was waiting for his wife to come home. He was also asking on the 911 call, he was asking the police, where's the Capitol Police? Because many times they're here at our home. So I guess that the fact that Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, there were Capitol Police that were stationed, I guess, in San Francisco to protect their home. but I don't think that they could do that all the time. And maybe this is just a bad, confluence of situation where they weren't there to protect.
Yeah.
And then the guys were very like, oh, what's going on, guys? It's just very chill. And I'm like, if somebody's in the house and they have a hammer here, I guess they're not real big on pulling guns, but I'm just like, it just seems like they were like, well, if you guys are all right, we're gonna go now. I'm like, I don't know. It just, I don't know. I guess I'm used to.
A definite a misread of the
Yeah.
situation for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because you get into situations where you get blamed for overreacting. You know, 1 out of 100 times, and that one time that you don't react,
Mhm.
1 out of 100 times, you get slammed. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of
Yeah.
situation for sure.
Yeah, definitely a tough job. So, Dad, you wanted to bring up the situation that
Memphis.
happened in Memphis. Was that Matt? Do you
Yeah.
have something? Okay, yeah,
Well,
go
I was
ahead.
just
Sorry.
wondering, why was there not like surveillance footage from the house itself? What footage was released? Was it not body cam? Like, what happened to
There
video
was
footage?
body cam, and there was a body cam, and there was
Security.
outside security cameras,
Okay.
No,
as
no
well.
inside, no inside.
But no inside
Yeah,
cameras.
I
That
wouldn't
we know
expect
of,
it
yeah.
to be inside.
Yeah.
You would not want to have an inside camera and like
That's also probably private. They're also worried about it probably leaking out. Because
yeah,
what if Nancy Pelosi's in there? She's talking about something, with her
precisely.
husband that only,
Yeah,
People
I just
selling stock,
no,
well, people had noticed.
I want other people to get that information they need to have.
you don't want anybody getting inside information on two people that get inside information. All right.
No, but I was just
Yeah.
I knew that they had I mean everybody could see those cameras. So I was like, why is that not so that is actually part of the release. Okay. So why did it take so long to get video footage? Anybody know what that's about?
My understanding was that they didn't have a lot to do, and the police report matched the video footage. So why necessarily release it? I mean, there's nothing that came out that was really shocked or that wasn't reported. I think the
Right.
shocking part is just the extent of the injuries, the weirdness of the interactions. But I think the weirdness of the interactions was this man was obviously mentally unstable. And
Yeah.
I think Paul Pelosi is a little bit older and was like, I am going to do everything I can to keep you happy. And you're saying you're a friend. I don't know you. Like he said that in the thing, like, I don't know you, and you're saying you're a friend. There's
Yeah.
like this, the conversation doesn't even make sense, and so you see that this person is clearly mentally unstable. And when the police shows up, I mean, to just be standing there just holding a hammer, and the police says, why don't you put that hammer down, bud? And he's like, I'm just gonna attack. Like
Yeah.
you were waiting for Nancy Pelosi. I mean, like till tomorrow you were gonna stay in this house the whole time. Like it's absolutely crazy. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think they had to necessarily release the footage per se. It just sort of like to me it's just helpful to kind of like, I mean, see what happened. And it is weird that you have the Capitol Police, but they didn't have any real security of their own except for the cameras, and the Capitol Police weren't there. So I mean, you really don't have any security. You'd think that the third most powerful person in the world at their home would have some security at their home. But I mean, obviously Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, and she had the security, and she was in DC. So if she had been home, I'm sure the Capitol Police would be there. But he didn't get that necessary. Maybe he didn't feel like he needed it, or like he. So
I mean,
that's clearly he wasn't the primary
moral of the
target.
story: if you were in Congress, get security.
Yeah, you
The
could
police
certainly
will be
afford
too
it.
late. Yeah.
So, all right, Dad, why don't you take this next topic? We're going to talk about the beating for, is it Tyre Nichol in Memphis. I saw this story, it popped across. I didn't watch any of the videos. I don't like watching those types of stuff. Jasmine watches those videos a lot, and like I hear like playing on her phone. I just like it. I don't like watching them. I don't really necessarily like want to watch the video of the Paul Pelosi video. I was just watching the news thing, and it was there. So, but go ahead, take away, because I don't really even know the details either. So
Yeah. It is always tragic when somebody is injured dies in these situations. So I want to say that first. I mean, what I'd say is tempered by that. I'm also thankful for the number of people that have said, you know, you're not standing by my son, you know, if you're rioting in the streets and burning the city down, and
Yeah.
you know, you appreciate those kinds of comments that, you know, that is not helpful in
Right.
the long run. I mean, there needs to be some righteous indignation for some things. But and I will also, you know, be very honest, my default tends to be towards the police. I don't know, a lot of other people's default is the other way, but I'm going to be very honest in saying I tend to default on that side, realizing that they have a tough job and have tough situations to um, try to deal with, and it's a day after day after day kind of thing, and it's a tough job. At the same time, there's no um, you know, grace, no, you know, allowance for just brutality.
No
Um,
quarter.
so I did watch the videos. You know, part of it's hard to see what's going on because you have people running, you have all this, you know, camera going, you know, as people are wrestling and that type of thing. What I saw and in this was a man who was told to get on the ground. He's saying, I'm on the ground, but he is like sitting on the ground. And it, you know, it's get on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. I'm on the ground, I'm on the ground, you know, kind of thing. Um, and then they say, put your belly down on the ground, and he's still, you know, he's still resisting. Um, you also see where they say, you know, give me your hands, give me your hands, give me your hands. I mean, just over and over and over again. So he's not complying. He is, um, you know, he's he's not following instructions, and maybe those instructions at first weren't clear, but then, you know, they were making it clear, and he was still doing things his own, you know, way, not giving his hands, you know, behind his back, not laying face down, those kinds of things. They're having to wrestle with him and tell him over and over again, you know, what they want. Um, you what you don't see, at least in the ones that I saw, some of them didn't play well or all the way through. At least I don't know whether that was just too many people accessing it or what. But you hear a discussion, you know, afterwards while he's on the ground, where these two guys are talking about, you know, when he got him out of the car, he grabbed this guy's gun, he hit him in the face. I mean, so this is um, a trying to get this guy out of a car that's driving very erratically. When they get him out, he is fighting them, trying to grab their guns, and they have to wrestle him to the ground. And every instruction is over and over and over and over and over again. And he breaks free at one point. So they lose him. So they are, you know, after wrestling with him, he breaks free. One of the officers, you know, maybe got poked in the eye or cut or something along that line.
Pepper
Again,
spray.
there's something going on. So you have injuries. They have knee injuries and stuff, and they're chasing him down the street. They lose him, and they catch up with him again, and they're, you know, have to wrestle him down again to do it. So was it excessive force? That's probably the way it's going to come out. Was it a tough to try to get him to comply? Was he, you know, they believed he was on drugs just because of the way he was driving and just the way he acted. So you know, is this guy just out of his head and doing crazy stuff? And they just, you know, they're injured, and that again, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't make it right. You know,
So
he hurt me,
the
so I hurt them, kind of thing.
the
But that's kind
headline
of the way I see it.
is that he was beat by police. Is that beat to death? Is that what? And am I
Is that accurate?
misunderstanding? Yeah,
Yeah,
misunderstanding.
he was beat and he died later. Yes.
Okay, so he didn't die on the scene, but he
Correct.
died because of those injuries.
Right. And
Okay.
my thought too was, you know, they have police all over the place by the time this, you know, by the time the chase and recapturing of him. And he's you know, finally handcuffed, and he's squirming and trying to crawl under the car and do stuff even then. So, you know, what extent some of those injuries were him doing stuff to himself. And I also wonder, why did it take so long to get him in an ambulance and get him, you
Yeah.
know, because there's a long period of time, at least it seems like a long period of time, you know, 10 minutes watching a video of this guy in handcuffs and people walking around talking about it seems like a long time to me.
So I mean, without knowing, like I said, a lot of the details, my initial reactions are, you know, I've seen a lot of like you know, Cops, that TV show that used to be on a long time ago, and it used to blow my mind at how many times they have to tell these people the same thing: get on the ground, get on the ground, turn around, walk back towards me, walk back towards me, walk back, you know. And nobody, it doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter whatever, like people just do not comply with the police. And it reminds me of like talking to a 2-year-old, you know. And you just it's similar to me in, like, you know, you see a toddler um at a daycare, you know, and the toddler's biting other kids and doing other, you know, all these things, and you got to tell them over and over 100 times, and they're not your kids, so you can't, you know, do, you know, anything, you know, like you can't sit them in timeout forever or sit, you know, whatever. And they come from all sorts of different backgrounds, and you just have to treat them with as much grace and compassion as you can. But I'm sure that job wears on you. I feel like very similarly, like that's how I look at the policing profession. You know, I'm not gonna say who it is, but you know, he told me, he's a police officer, and he told me that, you know, you'll come back every week to the same house, to this domestic abuse. Girlfriend's getting beat up. She, you know, gets a order of protection or whatever. Maybe not. Sometimes she does. Sometimes she doesn't. She always goes back. She always, you know, whatever. Then she shows up dead. You know, and you get really jaded to the thing. It's like you're telling people, get out of the situation. You're providing them all the legal, you know, routes to do it. And people are just going to be, you know, the Stockholm syndrome, you know, like going back to it. You get used to prison, you get used to what it is. You don't know any other way to live. And I think that's the sad part of our culture, a large part of our culture, white and black and everything in between, is there's this sense of I can't get ahead, I'll never get ahead. The police are out to get me, everyone's out to get me, society's out to get me. And, you know, price of eggs is $6 a gallon. $6 a gallon. Wow.
I was about to say, if you can get eggs for $6 a
gallon of
gallon,
eggs.
get them.
Yeah. And but to say that it's like, it's really, it's sad to me, because you have police officers dealing with this every day, and people in these conditions dealing with this, you know, interactions, self-medicating. You know, he might have been on drugs. He probably was on drugs. You know what I mean? And he may have been in a situation, I'm reading a lot into it, but, you know, may have been in a situation where, you know, he tried to get a good job, and because his name is Tyre, you know, nobody would hire him, you know, or something, and, you know, give him a shot. And so you get in a situation where, why listen? You know, if I can run, I will run, you know. And when you're on, you know, like not medication, on drugs, you know, you might not have the sensibility to, you know, to stop yourself, to actually comply to whatever, what's it mean, and then you're getting beat up, and your adrenaline pushes you past what you can, and you're still squirming and try to get away, and you die. And it's an awful situation all the way around.
Yeah.
All the way around,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah, and I think too, a part of it too is there's people that knows this individual and know that, you know, they see him on a normal day and he's doing his job or doing this or that or whatever.
Right.
They see him as a person, and when something like this happens, they can't believe that, he's done this, and it's got to be the police's fault and those kinds of things. So, um, you know, eh, the sum of his life isn't the last hour of his life.
mhm,
Yeah.
And I think part of, dealing with people, somebody trying to grab your gun and
Yeah.
somebody, beating on you when you're trying to get them out of a car that they might likely, if they wouldn't have stopped him, who would he have run over, killed, or whatever, you know? Um,
There's no winning in here.
yeah.
There's
yeah.
no winning scenario.
Yeah, and it's always sad when a life is lost, and it's
Mhm.
always
Or somebody has to go to prison, or
tragic, yeah, or and justice is not always equal or fair, or timely. you know, People die in jail waiting on a sentence, or waiting on to be, let go. So it's not. Life is far from perfect, and I think that it is good to say things like, it sounds like the family said, let's not burn down our neighborhood over this, you know, um, and goodness, I wouldn't want to, if my child, were to pass away, in any kind of interaction, I wouldn't want the city to go into turmoil, or people to, I would want to deal with the facts as they are,
Right.
Mhm.
and let the local people deal with, what they
Yeah.
are, and as
Well,
they are.
our
And
our problem too, if you look at these policemen, you want to see justice done. You want to see our police do a a great job even in those tough situations.
Mhm.
At the same time, how many police are shot every year because somebody grabs their gun, or I mean, it happens
Police are people
a
too.
lot. So yeah, police are people too. Um, so they're in a tough position, and yes, they need good training. They need to have a great sense of presence when they're doing things, and you hope that it wasn't because I this guy you know poked my eye out, poked my eye, or
Mhm.
my knee is all jammed up because of wrestling with this guy, or my face is been hit, so I just beat the crap out of him, kind of
Yeah.
thing. We don't want to see that either. But I also feel like police are in a tough situation again, because even if they try, I don't know. I've done a lot of
Yeah.
wrestling in my day. I really have. I mean, I've done a lot of fighting when I was a kid, and there's times when you're stronger than somebody else, and but you're trying to keep them from hurting you, and yet contain them.
Yeah.
So it's hard to contain somebody who is not as strong as you are, um, and keep yourself from being injured
Yeah.
too. I mean, and not
For
try to
sure.
injure them. You don't want to injure them. Um, I hate to say it. I've fought with a few girls who just, for whatever reason, they thought that they were tough as I was, and it just there might be some out there, but I didn't need any of them. You know.
I've got one thing to
Go ahead.
one thing to
Mhm.
say that maybe has a couple parts, but I'll try to keep it really short. As far as opinions, you know, it being very close to this happening, even if with video, we're very close to what happened, and they may come back and go, well, they did a toxicology report and all this kind of stuff, and jump into conclusions. Things we our minds move and our actions move faster than their research into what happened. That takes longer. That's number one. Number two, the thing to mention that didn't get mentioned in this, because we probably already know it, but we probably ought to mention that all the police officers involved were African American, as was Tyre Nichol. That, I think, I have this fear that that's not going to be mentioned enough so somebody's just going to hear it. Hey, did you hear about Tyre Nichol? And they're going to look up something and go, oh, 5 cops killed a black man, but they're all black too. So you have to recontextualize and go, okay, if it wasn't racist, then I have to think about, I'm not saying it was or wasn't, I'm just saying you have to think, what was it then? The other thing to mention was that's something maybe you guys can answer, but there's something about this is, you ever heard about the Scorpion unit? There's a unit that got started in November 2021 in Memphis because of all the crime rate, the murder rate was really high, the homicide rate. So they created a Scorpion unit, and that sounds like a movie or something. But they went hardcore on crime. Basically, I don't know a lot about it. They made the crime rate go down, the homicide rate go down, but many of the members of the police force that were involved with Scorpion unit actually were in this group of people that caused the man's death, I think. So they deactivated the unit. I had this thought where I'm thinking, okay, these are guys that are trained to be on heightened alert. Like they're de-escalation. Is that really their purview, or is it, harsh? Yeah, or is it like harsh, reprisal? Oh, you hit my knee, I'm breaking your whole body. That's a lot. But that's, and again, we also have to think about, it's hard to talk about this because people are going to automatically say, well, your opinion doesn't matter because, as they can see here, we're all Caucasian.
Are you saying we're
Caucasian
for
guys.
white breads? I think that's a good thing too. And to kind of dive into that a little bit more, I would say that, I like my analogy of the childcare worker, because I think it's something that you can relate to a little bit better. Like saying you come down on the side of the police is like saying you come down on the side of the worker in a childcare facility when a child dies in a facility, whatever, a childcare facility, because it's like the child, yes, maybe acting erratically or acting in a way that, is dangerous to themselves or that person, whatever. But the adult is the one with the authority, and the one that when the principal comes in, they're going to ask the teacher what happened. They're not going to ask the child what happened,
Well, they will.
And it's a similar dynamic, I feel like, with the police. The public is going to look at the police and ask what happened to the suspect. There's going to be that the authority lies in the one with the gun. The one with the gun has the authority, has the upper hand in the situation. And so to me, my default is let's listen to what the suspect has to say. Let's listen to the characterizations of the people in the room, the witnesses of that, to kind of build a bigger picture. Because, there might be I was telling Jasmine, there might be 100,000 good cops and then 100 bad cops. But the news is going to always drop in on these 100 and reinforce this idea that cops are bad. But you have to address the fact that there's 100 bad cops, like out on the streets and doing that like SWAT style. Like, okay, you're gonna hit you hurt me, I'm gonna mess you up, and you know what? I'm gonna get away with it because of the badge, And so it's very messy. It's very complicated, as it should be. But my default is to not be on the side of the police in this in general, because they're the one with the badge and the gun. This kid or person, I don't know his age, I'm assuming younger.
29.
Okay, he's almost my age. So I assume this person is there's more to the story, and we have to wait for the, toxicology reports and all these different things. But, when you are, being told to do something, whatever, and you're not in a place to listen, and you've got 20 cops standing around you, and you're just trying to buck up as much as you can, but there's no way to win, and someone just starts beating you to death.
Yeah.
Is that truly something that you can, is warranted?
That's not a de-escalation, is it?
It's not de-escalate. There's no, I don't see any justification for this man to have died.
It's
Very
too
little,
much.
obviously. Even if he grabbed for the gun, he didn't get your gun. That's like saying a toddler, this kid beat me, so I beat his face in. Okay, he bit you. That's your job. You work with toddlers. I don't see it that way. I just can't. And I think that our system is set up as innocent till proven guilty for a reason. Because when you do it the other way, when you automatically assume that the police are in the right, yes, I assume that police have hard jobs. Yes, I assume that. I know that. But sorry, we can go down this for too long, but but real quick, and we were talking about this over last week or whatever, but this keeps popping up in my head, so I'm just gonna say it. There was a child that was beaten, and she was beaten, squeezed, abused, and ended up dying due to her injuries from the babysitter. And the babysitter mentioned to her dad that, why do you have these cuts and bruises or whatever? And she said, babysitter. And the dad was like, oh, was it? Maybe it was the other kids that were there, suggesting like, are you sure? And because he couldn't imagine that the babysitter was abusing his little girl. And so she changed her story because she wanted to make dad happy. Dad didn't believe her, and she changed her story and just said, yeah, it was whatever other kid, And so that assumption of like, well, you're not going to believe me, no matter if I'm telling you the truth, you're not going to believe me because it couldn't be the babysitter, it couldn't be that person. They're a good person, and it's like, even the police might be a great police, but that day he snapped and beat this kid or whatever. I don't know the situation, but I think that it's important in all of this to gather the facts and not burn down your city, not do anything drastic, not just assume that the police were, they had a tough day. Every day is a tough day. It doesn't mean you get to kill somebody,
You had a bad day. You beat a guy dead.
All right, so we've beaten this topic to death. So let's move on. And so, Jason. Oh no, we're gonna move on. So Jason, you had brought up or put something on the list to talk about this week. Leaked audio from Pfizer. This is another one. I have no idea. I wasn't really tracking this, so I'll let you kind of set it up and we'll respond.
I'll set it up and let you guys go. You guys may or may not have heard of this group called Project Veritas.
Yes.
What they tend to do is do a lot of I think of them as kind of gotcha moments. What they do is they have hidden microphone, and they will meet with somebody, and many times they'll get them at a restaurant, or hey, let's drink a little bit, or or they talk to them, get a conversation going. So what happened recently is somebody with Pfizer that knew a lot about their practices and research and what they do. And you could tell the guy's a little bit sauced, not the guy recording. I think he's playing along with it, going, hey, and they mentioned something that was very interesting in the leaked audio that came out. And it was, are you guys familiar with gain of function?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gain of function, if you're not familiar, or for the listeners, is when you take a virus or bacteria or something like that, and you add a little intelligent design, and you go in there and you muck about with the genetics of this living thing, and you either many times you make it more effective, more transmissible, any of those kind of things. So, and the thought is so that we can come up with something to fight it off. So you're basically making a super virus. Oh, we fought it off. Oh, great. So if it really adapted or mutated in the real world, we'd have some kind of answer for it. But that's very dangerous, and there's a lot of ethics issues with that.
Right.
There was some issues with that going. Actually, that's what they said was going on at the Wuhan lab. whatever you want to think about that.
So that's what the leaked audio said.
The leaked audio was saying that Pfizer was doing gain of function, but he was like, I wouldn't call it gain of function. It was just directed evolution and stuff.
Yeah.
He was coming up with semantics to like that. There's because of the issues with the Wuhan lab, and I think with Fauci being a part of that, and they were they were saying, Dr. Fauci, there's gain of function research that was going on in the Wuhan lab, and you guys admitted it. And he said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. He goes, well, we have the documentation right here. So there's a bad taste in people's mouth about that word, that phrase, gain of function. So of course he's going to go, oh, semantics. We call it, a directed evolution. But honestly, what they were saying is what we would do is make some changes, mutations in it, and then we'd come up with. So we'd have the next boosters and vaccines for the next mutations that might happen over the span. And he did mention that this COVID thing is a cash cow. So basically what we all suspected. And
so he just said what everybody already knows.
Well, everybody that hasn't been canceled or taken off Twitter or whatever for saying the truth, and then you get stones thrown at you for being a conspiracy theorist. And then if you wait just enough time, you get, not for every conspiracy theory, but for some of these, you're getting validated. So it's kind of interesting. But that's all I can say about that. It's just an interesting bit of news. You guys are welcome to chat about it. I'm just going to listen in.
The only thing that I would say, because I mean, obviously the incentive for these companies is to make money, and the more deadly a disease is, the more effective the disease is, the more money is to be made. So let's just acknowledge that. And it's always funny to me that the left, who's always like against big pharma and everything, is the ones that are so strongly defending these pharmaceutical companies, now that the Republicans are going in on them, for all this gain of function stuff. And but I will say it's the semantics is the dumbest part of this whole conversation. It's because of course every government, whether they say it or not, is participating in some sort of gain of function, whether they call it that. You can change the name 100 times. We are trying to, even the flu vaccine, you are editing, manipulating. When you're coming up with Tylenol, when you're making the formula for Tylenol, you're trying to figure out how to get that to achieve some outcome. You are, doing that with so much of our science. It's like making a bomb, but trying to say that, oh yeah, it's not, we're not trying to make more explosive bombs. We're trying to make, or not trying to make attack bombs. We're trying to make defense bombs. Defense bombs are defense. When we get attacked, then we use those bombs to bomb them. They're not attack bombs. They're defense bombs. It's like, this is stupid. It's the same thing. Do you assume the intent behind it is for good or for ill? Obviously, when we do gain of function, it's for good purposes because we want to protect our citizens with this vaccine. When Wuhan or China is making it, that's gain of function because they are manipulating it, trying to make a super virus to, attack us, whatever. So the whole debate is kind of, it's muddy and it's stupid to begin with. So
I think part of the concern is the laws were passed to try to stop that, because it exactly what happened in China. It got loose and people started dying in the streets, literally. So we said we're not going to do this because there's ethical things and because it is so dangerous. And then for somebody at Pfizer to turn around and say like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing, and all. And there's it's someone trying to impress a girl. I think was how he's trying to impress her, and she's asking questions and all, and he's like, oh yeah, and it's just like my time in the we talked about we talked about clearances and stuff like that. There were guys in the service that had access to top secret stuff, and they're out talking to reporters and stuff because the reporters like patting them on the back, give them a few drinks, yeah, this is really cool. You're really somebody, and they're going like, yeah, I am, let me tell you about, what's going on at the, you know, in the world, Let me tell you this top secret stuff, because you think I'm so cool. It's that kind of thing. With this guy at Pfizer, he seemed to spill the beans, and his, what they're saying is, well, he was just talking, smack, which he may be talking smack. But he could also have been talking the truth, and the truth that we worry about, these companies, again, breaking laws and doing very dangerous research, and all, for which we've seen the results in COVID.
Yeah. Matt-
COVID has. I was just going to say, COVID. If you're saying you have two choices with COVID and the Wuhan lab, let's go back to that real quick about the gain of function. Is either it evolved normally, somehow, and it was the whole wet markets thing, or there was gain of function research done on all this, and it leaked out. And the thing is, if you look at COVID, the coronavirus from a microscopic point of view, it had all the markers that you would see if an intelligent designer got involved, aka a person got involved and did those things. It's almost like, it's not that you look real close and there's numbers on there, but it's close. It's kind of like,
Why is there a barcode on this?
Right. Why is there a barcode on this virus? But it's the genetic equivalent of that. It's kind of like you can see where the twist ties are, if you want to think about it like that, or the staples. You look real close. Oh, what? There's staples where they stapled this genetic material together. It's not that it happened naturally. So and again, there were people. The thing that gets me is there were people saying, wet lab, and anybody said anything different about a Wuhan leak, oh, no, you're out. We have to cancel
wet market.
Right. Would I say wet lab?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
That doesn't sound like a very effective lab.
No, they need to mop up that spill. But you get what I'm saying. If you said that, they were like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And then the data came out that validated you. And now do you get repudiated and get, oh, we're sorry. No one ever says they're sorry. You just have to kind of, go, hey, well, I told you so. And
love is not having to say you're sorry.
Oh, I say sorry all the time. That's
you never
love.
have to say sorry.
I'm sorry, Dad.
Not to me.
You're wrong.
I had to say sorry today to my love.
Yeah, I had multiple times. Yeah, so Matt, did you have anything to add on that one? I didn't want to take from your...
Honestly, when it comes to bioengineering viruses, all I have to say is tanks, but no tanks.
Okay. Speaking of no tanks, but tanks, we originally said we are not giving tanks to Ukraine. We will support them. We will give them money. We'll give them other weapons, but we're not going to give them tanks. We're not going to give them Patriot missiles. We're going to give them Javelin missiles. And now I think we have a group from Ukraine that is over here training on Patriot missiles. So for some reason, we just decided that even though we're not going to give them Patriot missiles, we're going to train them on them. So imagine that we'll probably send them some at some point. And then tanks were not a thing. The thing about it is Poland had some old tanks that they were going to give to Ukraine, and they have been talking about this for months.
Are you talking about the Leopard 2s?
Those
are
I'm
not
not sure.
old.
Well, some tanks that they were going to give to. I don't remember the exact details on that, but my understanding was that they were going to send those, but they didn't want to be doing that because they thought that they're so close to Russia that there would be retaliation. So they were going to give the tanks to Germany, and then Germany was going to give them to them. And then Germany was all like, you know what, we kind of want the United States to give them to them. So we're kind of like, we want to do this, but we want you to do it so that it, so Russia is like not going to attack us because we don't want to take the heat. So
I take that back. Leopard 2 is old.
So let's see. So Biden was all like, no, we're not doing tanks. That's crazy. Do you want to start a land war in Europe? And
Start
so
a land war in Europe.
exactly. And so they didn't want to escalate. That is on the list of Russia had several things that were like on the list of like we will use nuclear weapons if tanks are sent, if Patriot missiles are sent, if certain things are done. And I can't remember what the other two things are, but we've already done two things on that list that they said were red lines. And to include, I think, allowing what country did we let into NATO recently? I can't
Ooh, I
remember.
forget.
Whichever one it was Sweden or something.
Finland or Sweden. Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think we let one in, right? This guys correct me or fact check me. Did we? Do you
I will
guys
look.
remember? Okay. Well, I'm thinking we let one in. There was two other ones that wanted to get in that we didn't. There was something about balance of power, and that was a red line, but Russia didn't act on it. So now it's kind of like, well, how far can we push them before they hit us with nukes? Because they didn't with the last two times. So it's like playing with fire. So I see this as like a really, really like just flipping a coin. You know, you may land on heads twice, but you flip it a third time, like statistically speaking, you're gonna land on tails, you know? And so it's a escalation for sure. And then I think Belarus is talking about folding to some of the demands of Putin and getting directly involved. And so to me, it seems like if we, when these tanks get there and Belarus might join in, and it's just sort of like up in the ante. So, that could be a real game changer for Ukraine if they get these tanks, and it could be a real game changer if Belarus enters, the battle as well. So it's just more escalations, and we're about to get out of the cold season next month and go into prime fighting time. So that's definitely a scary thing. So do you guys have any? Yeah,
So
go
they
ahead,
both
Matt.
applied for admission into NATO. However, it's not decided yet. That will come, I believe, in June, if I read correctly. So that is something that is possible to happen, but it has to be unanimous, and as I understand it, and I don't think there's huge likelihood that that's going to be the case. Yeah,
Oh, I was going to say North Macedonia was the
The
most
last.
recent in July 2022. Prior to that was Montenegro in 2017.
Mm.
So
At this
that's
point, it's
not who
nearly
we
the
suspected.
entirety of Europe.
Yeah. Everybody wants in. My understanding, the country that's holding out and not allowing it to be a unanimous decision is Turkey. And Turkey is one of those fun friends like the what's it called? Saudi Arabia, where we like Saudi Arabia because the oil, but we don't like anything they do in their country. They kill reporters, they do all sorts of terrible things, and we just look out for them because we need their oil. Like Turkey's one of the same thing. Like we don't really like anything about them, and they don't stand up for us at all. They don't really fight on our side in any situation, but because of their
They sided with Russia in this
initiation.
conflict.
Exactly, but because they're in NATO, like why is this country in here? Like this makes no sense. And they're
It's like
actually
inviting
talking
the
about
Klingons.
dropping out of the NATO alliance, or there's some talk of that because they were looking at possibly invading Syria, having their own Syrian war, which has not gone well for any country. So I don't know why they want to be the next one to do that, but they wanted to set up. My understanding too is that it was a zone for the issues that they're having, or the issues they're having with. So they got a big, after the Syrian civil war, got a big influx of Syrian refugees, and they didn't want all these refugees, obviously, and so and they have a huge Kurdish population. Well, the Kurdish people have gotten really, really more powerful and are like talking all the time about breaking off and creating their own country. But, obviously they don't want to lose that much of their population and the political influence they'd have. That would cut their country by like almost more of a third. I mean, that's like basically letting California cede, like you just lose like so much population and taxes and all that good stuff that federal governments want. So it's a big it's a big deal. They didn't want that to happen. So they thought if they invade Syria and create this like zone, that they can put all of these Syrian refugees into that zone back into Syria. So they're putting them back into Syria, but they're basically occupying it. But that dilutes the population of the Kurds. And so you're less likely to have an uprising because of the population dilution. So that's the idea behind it. That was something they talked about a couple weeks ago that wasn't really on my radar.
It worked for Babylon.
And yeah, and it didn't end up happening. So they didn't invade, at least as of yet. So apparently that has calmed down. But I thought that was interesting that Turkey's going through a lot of different things. I actually just saw too that Armenia is being invaded by Azerbaijan because there was, I guess, a conflict back a while ago, a little like a couple months ago, back in like September. And apparently Russia, who's like friends with or allied with Armenia, didn't respond. They're like, we're tied up in Ukraine. We're not worried about you, Armenia. And
You're on
so
your own.
Azerbaijan's like, hey, wait, we attacked and Russia didn't respond. Let's attack some more. So, that there might be some, there's little wars popping up and battles popping up all over the world, seems like, in this, what do they call it, an outbreak
War
of
III.
little clusters, of little skirmishes and fights going on. So, do you guys have any insights or things about Ukraine that I'm not aware of with these tanks?
Well, no, just that the leopards that are going over there are going to be easier for them to use in the terrain that they have. They're lighter vehicles. That's been one of the big problems with our Abrams. We made our entire, well, other than the Bradleys, which we've already sent them, the Abrams they're heavy and they're not going to work too well for the trench warfare that they're looking at. So honestly, they're not ideal, but they can be used as a almost like a mobile artillery. So that's the thing. But they have high maintenance needs. So we don't have a lot of confidence in their ability to keep them maintained, but we're going to give them to them anyway because that'll allow the Germans to feel that they're not the only ones helping out Ukraine. And that was the
Not
thing.
the only one.
Yeah, yeah. So Germany was basically negotiating with the US and be like, we're going to do this if you do this. We need you to show support here. But US doesn't feel like it's a great idea, but we'll do it anyway. And hopefully they'll be able to use them for good and they won't get captured and, end up in a Russian museum.
Jason?
F-15s, F-14s. I think the Ukrainians were asking for F-14s or F-15s.
Yeah, we haven't given those yet.
No, that
Emphasis
was
on the word yet.
that was mentioned as hey, we're giving you these leopards, and I know it's to move around in some of the areas that are full of debris and things like that. I know we had that apartment building that was just decimated, and it's sad to see all this, but there's a lot of rocky, terrain that they have to go around. And so, like Matt was mentioning, the leopards are going to help with that, but the leopards have treads and you get some of those rocks in there. Unless you have people that are really good with maintenance on those aren't going to last as much. And they're going to ask for maintenance people to be sent in or trained or something. And, but I think the word escalation was used. They were saying, but again, like you said, yet. I mean, we were saying the tanks were escalation. Then we gave them tanks, and then they're requesting F-15s, F-14s. We were saying that's escalation, and then 2 months down the road, we're like, here's some planes. They're not going to give them the F-22s or the newest, Top Gun type stuff. They're going to give them, they have these extras laying around.
We have some Spitfires.
Oh yeah, here's something too. The thing that people are talking about is, we're giving them quite a bit, right? But we're not replenishing. So if something were to happen where we would need to actually be mobilized as an army, we're coming in lesser. We're coming in at a low, at a lower amount of equipment, things like that, because we're giving it all to Ukraine.
Actually, those tanks were ordered from General Dynamics and they're not built yet, so they're building them to order. So
Wow.
that's the thing. They'll arrive well after the Leopards do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I feel like there was something like a delay on our end, but we did give them the old ones or something already, or we are going to. I think it's on the books. But I think
Maybe.
about this a lot. Like, if you can boil the frog without it jumping out of the pot, like great. But as soon as you like turn the heat too high and the frog realizes it's getting cooked, it's gonna jump out and break
That's
your
what a lid
plates
is
and
for.
your glassware, and I don't know what damage frogs can do.
You
But
put the lid on.
well, I feel like the situation with like Russia is like if we can continue to like slowly cross their red lines one by one, very gradually, very nonchalantly, do it in a diplomatic way, that they
Like
don't
they
have
did
any red
to.
lines left. And
Yeah.
then it's like, well, we don't have any red lines left, and there's nothing else that you can do now except for send actually your troops, which that would something we don't even have to do at that point. Like they're so done and depleted because we've given them so much support to fight their own war that they've literally destroyed, decimated the Russian army. Is like that's really the most ideal situation. And I mean, for the first time right now, I actually can see that as a possibility. I was pretty doom and gloom in all of our other things. Where like, okay, basically if we win, there's a Hitler and they come back for World War III. You know what I mean? But like, this is kind of like maybe this would be enough to knock them out slowly and just do it death by 1,000 cuts type thing. I mean, maybe we'll see.
What I'm concerned about personally is that we might have managed to neuter Russia because they have the mass exodus population. We talked about that last time. They may be a problem for the rest of, like they may have too many problems for the rest of like the next 50 years to really recover because of their population crisis. But here's where it gets crazy. They have a lot of oil, and Russia is very much looking at trying to make partnerships with China. And so by making them less able to defend themselves and less able to fend for themselves, we actually might have driven them right into China's arms. And I'm afraid that what we've done is made a worse enemy more powerful by trying to kneecap an old enemy.
I mean, we had that whole conversation about China. Is it about to collapse or is it, whatever? And basically, my initial thinking is it's leveling off. It's not going to be as powerful as we thought it would be, and so driving the Russians to more support of the, Chinese is not as big a issue in my mind as maybe I thought it was a year ago, because it's like you have two underachieving, like autocracies, like okay, great, all right, great, just join the rest of the world's dictators of irrelevance, basically. But like China is obviously not irrelevant, of course, but like as far as like being a player, they have to play nice economically in order for anybody to buy their crap. Like
Right
who's
now they
going to
do.
buy
And,
that
and
stuff
right now they have the population, and they're going to have problems with population later. But as they
that's
build
why
up
they're
the
holding
ships,
Russia at an arm's length.
yeah, as they build up the ships and the Navy, they can actually exert more force on their local area, and I think they could become completely self-sustaining in the near future. Again, I could see it collapsing. I could see, but it could go either way. They could become a super threat, or they could become obsolete. Those are really their only options.
I think it has everything to do with who takes over after Xi Jinping. I think he's not going to be in a position within the next 5 years to make his dreams come true of world domination,
No.
because they are so behind the curve. And this has kind of pushed them onto like the world's radar as being adversarial, and obviously the moves that Trump made to be more protectionist and move away from trade with them, or at least more penalizing them. So if he goes out of power and somebody replaces him that's just as crazy as he was in his 10 years ago, then we're going to have big problems, because they're inheriting a very strong power, and then you just ramp it up and continue to go. And, we could have some big problems, or it could be taken over by somebody who sees the McDonald's theory, if everybody's got a McDonald's, why we need to fight? We just need to eat fast food and grow our economy, get fat and happy, I mean, like, so it could go either way in that sense. I mean, it's just, You never know. But okay, we've got a couple more topics, and we've already been on this as a very long call. So let's just drive right into them. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so I saw a poll that evangelicals, I don't know why I said it like that, are leaving Trump or turning away from him towards DeSantis and Pence in early polls. And a lot of people said that's because when the abortion ban happened, Trump kind of came out and said, this is the dumbest thing like we did. And it's like, wait a second, you were the one that put those judges there to make sure this happened. And now you're mad about it because you think that it's going to negatively affect you in the midterms, which thinks you're going to negatively affect your political chances. So it's really not any kind of principled position that you had at all. It was all just playing to, throwing red meat to the base type thing, and so a lot of the evangelicals are like, well, are turning against him, especially because it's like, well, DeSantis is Trumpy, he's adversarial to the media. He gives us everything we want, and he's a lot more palatable. So there's we had talked about that, but the fact that it was showing up at a poll, some more, I don't know if we should believe polls very much, but it is something that we had talked about before, and I just wondered if you guys were surprised by that, not surprised by that, or anything, and then we'll move on to Shapiro and Crowder.
Who first?
Who first? You said something, so you first.
I'm not surprised by this.
Okay.
I think that evangelicals, from what my sense of the lay of the land is that evangelicals were always slightly hesitant about Trump. They liked what he said, as in like his platform, but they didn't like how he said it. And I don't think that's ever been something that I will say we, people that are that believe that Jesus is the way. I don't think that we have really liked him as a person. So we've liked that he's been able to get results, and that he has at least honored America's foundation, So I would say there's some things about him that we appreciated, but we always had reservations. Just the fact was he was able to rally the workers of America, and that was big. So finally we had the workers and we had the Christians. So all right, let's do something, but we're not surprised. I mean, some of us are surprised that he put those judges in there and then decided that he was against the Roe versus Wade overturning. I'm not. I don't think that it's a surprising move. We know he's opportunistic. So
yeah,
a lot of people that kind of political wonks or people that watch this thing that are very kind of, they're willing to compromise a lot of core principles. Their whole thing was, there's some things that let's fight on. Let's, a small government, whatever you want to call it, low taxes, but really you're hinging everything on this pro-choice, pro-life thing. That's not a battle we can win. The culture is going a little bit more left in some ways. Even Christians, they're like, I agree on all those points, but I believe that we shouldn't legislate morality in that way, or that's what they might say. I'm not saying that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I hear that a lot, and I'm going, I don't know, I would rather somebody hold fast to their principles and not, wiggle on some of those things, because it looks like I just want to win. What you should do is win based upon being able to speak on your principles, or articulate, or and control the narrative with that a little bit better. Mobilize people to come out, because I think people were so like, hey, we're going to win this thing, and they didn't mobilize as much as people on the left did, or people, I wouldn't say people on the left, people that are pro, kind of on the fence about the abortion issue. Kind of like, I don't know if that's really the hinge that was going on, but I will tell you, it might have had a lot to do with it, with the Dobbs decision, whatever you want to call it, with Roe versus Wade. That may have had a lot to do with it, unfortunately.
Interesting. We really should copy that play. Next time that we have any type of vote, we should just start advertising on all of our news that there's going to be a blue wave that they're going to take over and like absolutely just mobilize everybody. Like get your mom, get your cousin, get everybody. We're going out voting. We're going to stop this blue wave that's coming.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what happened.
So
Like
there was going to be a red
left
wave. We
media.
went, oh, I'll just stay home. Well, I went and voted,
Well,
but
yeah, but I
but
knew
but
that they're playing at something. What they were doing was trying to motivate people who were less likely to vote, but who'd be scared of a red wave.
What I'm
Yeah.
concerned about, and I think that the voices that you're hearing right now have always been there to a certain extent. If you three have different opinion, and I mute two of you because I have the power, and I just
Right.
allow John Mark to just go, and go, and then I get reactions to him, from from Matt, then I've got this thing going, and I don't think anybody believed that Donald in the news media dreamed that when they gave him a microphone because he was so bizarre, and they silenced everybody else and allowed him to silence everybody else, that he would win. They never dreamed that he would, but he did. But there was always people that kind of voted for him. They didn't exactly vote for him. They voted against Hillary.
Yeah.
And so you still have those people who've voted against Hillary that would like to see somebody that does what Trump says, has some of those core values, but not him.
Right.
And you're hearing the microphone is being held to those people. So I have the microphone, and the other three of you guys are all silent and can't talk because that's the way the media does sometimes. And again, I could be totally wrong, but I just know that the power of the media to manipulate the story.
Right.
They don't want Trump. There's a whole lot of other people that don't want Trump that they thought supported him before, when in reality they were against Hillary.
Yeah, I think you're right in a lot of ways. I think that all of you have good points on that. And nobody shocked me with their answer there. But I think that we talked about this a little bit with DeSantis and Trump last time. Is that Trump wasn't going to be the I mean, everybody knows that he sort of like flip-flopped on the abortion thing, and nobody, this is where, like, what is it evangelical? Like, right? Because it's like, are they Bible believing, or are they just people that call themselves Christian?
Right.
So if you just say people that call themselves Christian, or even Bible believing, like sometimes like we know that a huge majority of those people are just sort of like, Easter and sun and Christmas Day, they don't
Right.
really, they know about Jesus and they say they believe it. And grandma was and we pray before dinner and stuff like that. But there's really no, like, you're not connecting your politics per se to just, you're really connecting it to what the Republican Party, says. So it doesn't bother you that Trump was against abortion, but now all of a sudden was for abortion, but now all of a sudden he's against it because, okay, he's on your team and he's a bulldog or whatever, and like that's what you want. And so, it wasn't really a priority for you, these judges, but that made you feel real good because they weren't these woke, judges, whatever. Yeah. Like, I'd rather get a Christian on the bench, than these woke liberals, and so and now it's like, I think Trump had the sense of, like, he's very instinctual in his politics. And so I think his instincts told him that, oh man, we're going to get crushed if we do that, with this, abortion thing. Like, because, just if you look at the numbers, I mean, 20% want are very extreme, like partial birth abortion, supporters. And then, 20% would be the extreme the other way, where like no case in any, rape, incest, anything like that. And so the large majority of Americans are in the middle, and I think he probably is somewhere in the middle. Like he could go either way, whereas before he was going, pro-life, whatever. Now he's pro-choice, and now he's pro-life, just based on the whims. And so I think, he saw it as a political liability. That's why he, said something about it. But to a lot of those, evangelical voters, it's like, no, this actually means something to us,
Right.
And so like that's a cut, it's a cut deep, because it's like, thought you were a changed man, But then there's a lot of people else that's like, well, you see what he was, he was just saying it. He never actually believed it, but he did what we wanted him to do, which was put these conservative judges on the courts, and they did what they, were supposed to do, and there
He
is an
also heralded
apparatus.
a decently good economy. The economy and the foreign policy under Trump was not something that most Americans are ashamed of, at least not evangelical ones. So
Yeah, I was a never Trumper. I back when the 2015, during the primaries, it wasn't till after he won that I was kind of like, okay, now I'm a never Hillary, or, and then I was like, for the first 2 years, I was like, man, this is a great economy. Things are good. I really like this Trump guy. I don't really like him as a person, but I like what he's doing. That was my line. And then after the midterms, especially, I was just kind of like, okay, he's not even really pulling out any of the things. He's not putting these people into places except for the judges and except for the tax cuts. I mean, like, this is really falling apart. But what I do think he did a great job on was foreign policy.
Yeah.
And I'll give him all the props in the world for that. Obama was very weak for 8 years on foreign policies. A lot of things happened. I think Joe Biden, while I agree with his decision to pull out of Afghanistan and wish that Trump had been the one to do it, I agree that was a right move. It was still kind of a disaster, and we should never have been there in the first place. It's like ripping off the Band-Aid. It's like, you don't want to do it; it's going to hurt, but it needs to get done. And on that
I feel
front,
like we should have at least blown up the equipment that we left, at the very least.
We pulled out the wrong way. We just I just we're supposed to be the first in, last out, and we just it did not go. I was disagree. Should we have pulled out? Maybe, but how we did it just did not sit right with me and a lot of other military. I'm not a military guy, but
whose fault is that?
Yes.
Do you think
Military.
whose fault is that? Was that the president or was that the military?
Well,
Military.
depends on who they get their
Well,
orders directly from and who gives the orders to them. So
right,
was it
and also who you put into those positions, or people that step down or are forced to step down. There's
2 decades of people in the military trying to say, I trained 100 Iraqis how to fight for freedom in their country, and here's the sign off, and here's their names, whatever, give me a promotion. And these people, 20 years of fake paperwork and bureaucracy nonsense of these actual people like not getting trained, not getting the and then you pull out based on like, oh, we've got 100,000 people in Syria that are trained and can fight against, the Taliban when we pull out. And then all of a sudden the list is repeated like 16 times, and there's actually only 100 people that can fight against the Taliban. And it's 100 to 1 odds. They're not going to do it. They're going to just go back to farming, because, I mean, it's definitely the military's fault, and we should never have been there so long. It was the reports that we had were based on ridiculous information it was absolutely insane, and nobody in the military wanted to take the fall for anything. So it's like the president, so all the military people are mad at the administration, but it's like, you were the ones that were there. You were the ones that were supposed to be doing this mission, and you failed. I'm sorry, we failed. The military failed. I was a part of the military. I failed in this season of accomplishing the mission. And because we didn't have a mission. It was a stupid mission, I should say. I mean, we had a mission, but it was a stupid mission, and we shouldn't have been there that long. So, I mean, and we spent trillions of dollars. You want to talk about the debt ceiling, hitting this debt ceiling? It's because we spent trillions of dollars on war for no reason, and now we have to suffer as a country.
And we
potentially-
gave
Go
money
ahead.
to countries that hated us. Like if
Yeah.
somebody goes, all their people are going, screw you, America, we hate you, and we're like, here's $1 billion, here's $1 trillion, and
Does
it's
this
like a
make you
lot.
feel better about us?
It doesn't, and it didn't, and they would actually
I would feel better about
work
you.
against us.
Yeah,
I
I feel
know.
really
You
good.
feel you had a great opportunity to turn and stab me.
So, John Mark,
I
you
can now
know,
buy better
you
weapons against you.
You seem to understand this more than I do. I think the way that we pulled out is kind of like, you left how much equipment? That was a big thing, because then you got these guys with the Taliban. They're standing on these tanks going, yeah, and I'm like, okay,
I don't
that's not
even
good.
buy that equipment argument. We had a day that we were leaving on the calendar that kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. But you know why it kept getting pushed back? Because we got all this equipment there. And then, unfortunately, he said, this time I really mean it. And they said, oh, well, we haven't gotten our equipment out. You got to leave it. You had months and months and months and almost a year to get this equipment out. But you didn't believe it was actually going to happen because you keep feeding lies and all these reports and all the da-da-da-da-da-da because you
Wow.
want to stay there. They didn't want to leave. Nobody wanted to leave. And he said, rip the Band-Aid off. So, yeah, we left all that equipment there. But
Why
whose
would somebody
fault
not
is
want to
that?
leave? Why would somebody not want to leave? Is it
Be-
the same reason why a lot of senators want to stay in the Senate forever?
War is money.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to
Okay.
be cynical about it, but like,
Back
this
to
isn't.
my
I'm not talking
question.
about the general guys on the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just doing their job. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not any like sergeant or private or any whatever. It's the
The
guys with
generals.
the stuff on their shirts,
Yeah, all the
collars.
So
yeah.
back to my question. Why
Sorry,
couldn't we have
Matt.
destroyed it all?
Why would we destroy it all? Like,
Because we don't want it to fall into enemy hands or them to sell
we're
it.
gonna
and-
shoot and destroy millions of dollars worth of. I mean, it's just like it's okay.
Better
Yeah,
than
we
leaving
could.
it
We
to our
kind of have.
enemies.
We have. We have shot in it. We have shot it. We destroyed it. We basically, it's not usable by us. So
I mean,
yeah, it's just that
it's just
they
a
have-
bad
yeah,
situation. Like
It's
I don't
all
know. It's
bad.
kind of like one of those things where
That
like this should have
sucked.
got out and now
Yeah.
it didn't. And
But I'm
it's
just
like,
like,
well, what do you want to
burn
do? Stay there, go back?
protocols.
Like what?
Burn protocols are a part of
Blow
most
it up,
militaries, are they
okay?
not? Like, if you have to abandon equipment that you know could fall into enemy hands, you destroy it. Now, I've
Destroy it.
heard that in multiple different conflicts.
Been
Now,
there, done
why in
that.
the world? Huh?
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, burn protocols are normal. Why didn't we do a burn protocol?
Because I mean, I think everybody believed a lie that there would be time to do this, there would be time to do that, and then there just wasn't. It just collapsed with like a house of cards, where you thought it
Okay.
was going to be, a several month process that we could get this stuff out to. I mean, like that was the problem too, is like miscalculation on what we had, because like I said, decades of like information that we kind of like. If we all just sit here and all agree that the sky is yellow, and then
Yeah,
we walk
actually.
outside one day and we're like, man, that sucker's blue. We've been lying to ourselves for how long? Like, oh man, now, man, why didn't we burn that book we wrote about how the sky is yellow? We wrote a book this
No,
big about the sky is yellow.
It
It's like,
was. There was a tornado that day.
yeah. I mean,
We're
who knows? But
reliving the moment.
that was a
Yeah.
terrible analogy. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
put y'all through that analogy. But,
That was
I mean, I
good.
guess
Anyways,
It
we
was also
could.
funny.
All right, so
Yeah.
yeah, Crowder and Shapiro. So this ought to be a fun little conversation. We try to condense it into a little segment here on the end. But yeah, so which side? First of all, say which side you're on, Shapiro or Crowder, and then why. And then I'll go. Do you want me to go last or first? I'll go first. No, I'll go last. Okay, Matt, go ahead first.
Why do you think I have an opinion?
Okay, Jason, you go first.
I'm for Steven Crowder. Now I don't always agree. Okay, I agree with a lot of the things that his show says most of the time. It's the methodology that he uses, where he basically will. Part of me laughs at some of the things they say, but he's kind of making fun of some people, and it's like they do that with our side too, but we're kind of stooping to their level. So whatever you want to say about that, I find him more there's and they do back up what they say on the show. But again, I'm not giving a review of their show. I do think that Daily Wire, which really you talk about Shapiro versus Crowder, you're really talking about Daily Wire versus whatever Crowder is doing. And Crowder was with Blaze TV, but then he kind of goes, I'm going on my own. He gets a lot of his money from what's called Mug Club, where people would basically they go, I bought a mug, and the mug they can say how much they want to pay for that mug, and a lot of times veterans or police get for free, whatever. I'll kind of jump to the point, is they don't have a corporation that they are what's the word, beholden to. Thank you. And they also have their videos on Rumble, because they've been taken off of YouTube a couple times, and I jump over to Rumble and watch it on there. Then when they get put back on, I jump back over there. There's parts where they actually don't show their whole show on YouTube. They cut it off at a certain point, and they basically go, screw you, YouTube, bye. And then the rest of the show they show on their website or another place. So, but yeah. And the thing is, they're doing all right. I mean, they have enough where they can pay audio engineers and editors and people to make little videos and stuff. The thing is, though, Daily Wire is big. Daily Wire, say what you want, but Daily Wire is big enough to have movies that they have decided to go into, or TV shows that they're starting to go into. So they're starting to feel like they're beholden to somebody. If Daily Wire doesn't put out their material on YouTube, they are messed up. If they get shut off of YouTube, oh no. But they still say a lot of things that YouTube's what do you call it? The people that are best practices.
Censor?
Yeah, the censors. Yeah, they're basically like, don't say these things, and yet Daily Wire will put out a lot of this stuff, like what is a woman and all those different things. I guess what I'm saying is, the thing that Crowder was saying to them is, you got to be able to say what you need to say and not worry whether YouTube's going to take you off or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they, in the conversations, he recorded conversations between Daily Wire and himself. And what that said was, hey, it seems like you're really beholden to YouTube. You're afraid that you have to change what you're saying. You're letting YouTube censor you. I don't do that. I jump over to Rumble or another service and still keep my information coming. But so the thing is,
so let me add a little bit more to my question.
Okay.
For everyone. But to clarify, do you think Crowder are you on side Crowder because of the way he handled himself in principle, or not really? It's more like,
Yes.
do you agree with like that? Okay, so in principle. Okay, so
I'm a principal guy. I think that you got to call balls and strikes no matter where you see it. I like Ben Shapiro
Even if it's
pretty
the
much.
principal's office.
Yeah, I like Ben Shapiro. I like a lot of the people. I watch a lot of the Brett Cooper, a lot of those different people that are on Daily Wire, and that's fine. They're really polished, but so is Crowder's pretty polished too most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, he says what he wants to say. He doesn't care, who disagrees with him. He does give data to back up why he believes what he believes. You may not like how he puts it, but he holds fast to whatever principles he has. I respect that on both sides. I didn't know that Daily Wire was that nervous about losing, their platform. I think, but when Crowder can just zig, if they knock him down, he goes up. I'm over here. And he didn't want to be associated.
So
with them.
why would he even go to Daily Wire in the first place? Like, why would he be trying to get on there if he didn't know want to lose his freedom? Like, I don't understand.
He didn't know all this stuff.
He didn't know until the term sheet. Okay.
Well, yeah, until he talked to some more of the people behind the scenes. He was like, it kind of caught him off guard. He went, I can't be, why are you doing this? He started asking this guy those questions. Why are you doing these? Why are you practicing this way? And his whole thing was, it seemed like he was like, I have nothing against these people. We a lot of our ideals were same purposes. they've been in similar speaking engagements at the same time. So they share values, but it's just kind of like how you go about that kind of gave Crowder a bad taste in his mouth. And I'm hoping he takes the high road on this, because I don't want to see Daily Wire versus Crowder's company. I think the reason he went toward Daily Wire was because Blaze TV was kind of dropping them for some reason, and Blaze TV has some of those same misgivings about information that they're kind of watering down what they're talking about. So
I don't know
that's
much about the Blaze. I can say I don't know much about the Blaze. Matt, did you have an opinion now?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the Blaze either, but for
who's the
Daily
Blaze
Wire,
guy? That Mormon guy? What's his name?
What?
Beck.
Beck.
Oh, Glenn
Yeah.
Beck.
Glenn
Really?
Beck was Blaze TV.
Yeah, he founded it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Okay.
didn't know that.
But
Well, anyways,
Go ahead.
so
Go ahead.
with Daily Wire, I actually tend to to agree that it's not a good deal for Crowder. It's not, but I don't blame them for offering it and the offer that they have. But just the fact is that their business model requires that they stay in the mainstream at all costs. Now, is that a concession that I think Crowder would be okay with, or one that I particularly like? I don't like the taste of it, but at the same time, I understand making that decision. Basically, they need to stay in the limelight as much as possible, which means that they have to curtail their own free speech. Yeah, that's not great. I think that if we could just build up a good alternative, that would be great. But right now, unfortunately, because YouTube has such a monopoly, back to that Google breakup, or the YouTube breakup, whichever it is. Was it YouTube or Google?
it's Google, but it's
Yeah.
Google because they own YouTube and ads and the platform
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
advertisers and everything. They're the player in the
The
platform.
only ABCs.
But there are alternatives. But guess what? They're just
Yeah.
not as popular. If you ask somebody, where do you go to watch videos? It's YouTube. Where are
Yeah,
you going to
always.
see? Because it's used as a search engine. I've seen
Uh-huh.
that. That's how people find our podcast. So through search engine. Somehow
Mhm.
it told them to look for it. But the algorithm. There's not that same, and even though they say, oh, Rumble's good. I mean, Joe Rogan says that he'll use Rumble too when it gets knocked off of YouTube. I get that, and it's but it does not have all the bells and whistles and algorithm that YouTube has. It's
Yeah.
it's too powerful.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
They've got a
they
very
have the
powerful
power.
head start.
Yeah, they have
But
the
that's the
power.
thing. So I
So-
don't blame. My point is that I don't blame Daily Wire for wanting to stay in that particular game.
So are you team Crowder or against Crowder? Because I really changed the question from do you support what he did or not support what he did?
I think I don't support what he did. I think it was a misunderstanding, and I understand why he did, but then Daily Wire actually came out and gave a very clear, transparent statement about it. And
Gotcha.
I was like, okay, I don't think this should be an argument. And I think maybe Crowder's coming to that conclusion too. Don't know.
Okey-doke.
Haven't heard from him.
Yeah, it
Alrighty,
goes back
Ed.
to that freedom thing. Crowder has he has the freedom to do what he wants to do, and
Yeah.
if one doesn't fit, there's a place for him in the world. It's just not with that, with Shapiro and that group. I like Ben Shapiro, the Matt Walshes and the all that they do. I appreciate what they've done in the past, the platform they've built, the powerhouse that they've become. I mean, they've done well. And so I think it is hardcore enough without being conspiratorial. I mean, they're probably called that and considered that, but they're not the Looney Tunes, foil caps.
They're not a
and
clown
things,
car.
Yeah.
What now?
They're not a clown car like
Yeah.
CNN.
So they, and yet they hold firm to a lot of basic principle stuff that I can go along with, and they do a great job. And and Crowder has his place. For me, I just don't find myself quite there. You would think that I would, but I don't. I'm more, just the other way.
Daily Wire.
We're split.
So I will say I am Daily Wire side of things. I think that
I thought you said you were Crowder.
no, I was just doing that because I was like, yes, there's somebody on the opposite side.
Got
Like,
it.
because I was always afraid when we get on this podcast that we're all going to be on the same side. We're all just going to be like, let's get on here and agree with each other every single
All
issue.
white bread, huh?
Yeah, all
okay.
white bread. And
All
so,
white bread agrees.
like,
You want me to
That
be
should
the
be
you want me to be
t-shirt,
the ringer? You want me to be the ringer? Sometimes I can be the ringer.
No, I just want.
I'll
I
be
was
your
just
I'll
glad
be your
that we'll have some
Huckleberry. I'll be your
contrast here.
Huckleberry.
Yeah. So I am definitely on against
Getting distracted.
I'm sorry, buddy. Go. He couldn't find the remote control. So anyway, I'm on. I think that Crowder complaining about a $50 million deal that when his when his videos get demonetized, he doesn't get the money for is somehow like the end of the world. It's slave wages. It's like if you say something crazy, if you start popping off saying something crazy and it gets demonetized, then the Daily Wire doesn't get paid either. So you still want to get paid even though the company you work for doesn't get paid? Like what kind of capitalist, you're supposed to be all about capitalism and all about whatever. So if you're not adding value to the Daily Wire, then why are you going to demand money? And so like that's what Candace Owens brought up, and I was like thought was an interesting point, was like how that's like socialism. That's like pay me no matter what, and so yeah, and the whole thing is like the timeline that Daily Wire laid out that Crowder couldn't even refute was basically like he got a term sheet, which is like an initial offer. You're supposed to counter offer. You're supposed to do all these things and go back and forth. And, then you're like, you know what? I'm going to record a conversation and make them look like the bad guy and pull their viewership over to me. And I think it just backfired completely in his face. And I think it just makes him look greedy and money hungry. And like you're trying to do your own thing. You're trying to leave the Blaze and do your own thing. You didn't like being under the Blaze. You had no intention of actually being under Daily Wire. And now you want to go out there and say you're for the little guy, like, okay, you're for the little guy, $50 million. And he's like talking about how like, I have the power to go out and start on my own and do my own thing, but it's the little guy that might be signing with Daily Wire that's going to get screwed over in these contracts. So that's why I'm really speaking out about this. It's not for me, it's for you, it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, maybe
like, I don't think there's anything in the Daily Wire contract that's out of left field. And if there is something like, I think he had a problem with like, how Daily Wire is like really bad about like, and now a word from our today's sponsor, this orange peel, and then they go on for like, whatever. Like it's really, he didn't want to do those like, like those like things. And so I get that, but at the same time too, that's why you're getting paid $50 million, because you're going to get demonetized on other, on these things. So we're taking account for that so that you can get all these things and get access to do documentaries and do films, whatever your ideas are, and do your creative passions. If you didn't want to do that, if you don't want to do any of that stuff, just go your own way. Don't make a video blasting this company. Like, I think it's absolutely juvenile. I
honestly think he smelled a rat. He thought he smelled a rat anyways.
Yeah.
Because this is a legitimate problem where everybody's placating the Chinese, everybody's placating big tech. So he's not wrong that is happening, but I think he misunderstood the situation. And managed to make himself look really bad in the process. I honestly don't. I'm for Daily Wire in this situation, but I don't think I'm against him in this. I think he probably just made a bad play, and I hope he recognizes it.
I mean, I think he dug in. That's the problem. Like that's like, okay, if you would have recognized this wasn't for you and then gone a different way, then whatever. But trying to record calls and blast people and put them out there and stuff, it's like it just makes you look really bad to me. And I think that this speaks to a division in the Republican Party at large, the DeSantis versus Trump wing. I think that there's no unity necessarily within the party anymore, and Trump is pretty weak, with the whole documents and the other, things that are going on with him, and just the fact that now he's, I think if he gets elected this one, he'd be like the second oldest president in history, type thing. I mean, like, he's getting up there in age, and it's, I don't know that there's the unity. The Daily Wire too is very much supporting DeSantis. Like, you can kind of see that with most of their talent. I mean, I would say Shapiro definitely, but a lot of their talent too is moving towards DeSantis and away from Trump anyway. So when you have the apparatus moving that direction, and I don't know if that plays into it all. I don't really know David Crowder that much. If he is like cares, on who that would be, and feels like he would be at odds with his coworkers, and and feels like, what, this is a chance for me to pull MAGA crowd away from Daily Wire too, because it's partially, if you're trying to go out on your own, you're trying to pull viewers to you. If you can paint them as big con and rhinos, and these are rhinos, the true faithfuls over here with the MAGA Republicans, me, then try to pull your audience that direction too. So I think that it might be a play in that direction. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
It makes sense, but it would be a really bad play. So I don't know. Poorly calculated.
I do think recording it, did kind of look like, hey, I'm trying to expose stuff. But here's the thing. I'm honestly curious about how many times that Daily Wire has been demonetized. I haven't really looked into that. This is the news to me, because of anybody, there's, I mean, how many things have they said that have been controversial? Tons.
Stop the steal. Like,
No.
Wait, what? I'm sorry. Say the question again.
What I was saying is how many times has Daily Wire been demonetized? I don't know, because they say a lot of controversial stuff. I'm just saying, did they just not want him to say, to say something really, kind of shock jock? Because a lot of stuff that Steven Crowder says, he'll say it and it's true, but then there'll be the shock jock kind of, kind of stuff that you don't want your kids hearing, right? Like, I might let my kids hear a little bit of what the Daily Wire is saying, to an extent. And they tread that line about, but it's not in joking. It's in information they're providing. Steven Crowder, I wouldn't want my son listening to it, because he'll throw in something that yeah, there's truth, but it's got kind of a
He's a comedian. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got some greasy chicken grease on it or whatever. So I guess what I'm saying is we're the okay. Look, I would go work for the Daily Wire. They said you can't say some of these things. I'll be like, okay, but what can I say? And they say, well, you can say this and that. I'm like, okay, I can tread that line. I don't think that that's pure censorship. So I'm kind of.
I don't think that they're telling Steven Crowder. Where in the world?
David.
He's a musician.
David Crowder is a Christian musician.
I don't think he's telling Steven Crowder that he can't say whatever he wants to say. It's sharing the risk, because you can say whatever you want to say, but if it gets demonetized, nobody's getting money. Therefore, you're not getting money. It's not to say you're getting censored or we're censoring you. We're just saying we're a business, and if this one happens to happen to you, then you share in that risk with us. It's sort of like getting commissions. If you work for a sales company, and you have a base pay, and then you also get commissions, those commissions aren't guaranteed. So if you don't close sales, you're not getting paid. You have to do your job on top of that. And part of that job is, how can you thread the needle of not getting demonetized, because these rules exist and they're against all conservatives. It's not big con is censoring you. It's not big conservative media that's censoring you. It's big tech that's censoring all of us, and you're sharing in that risk in your monetary whatever. If you don't like it, let's negotiate. Like, that's the thing, is like, right. And he's like, well, they're sharks at negotiating. Well, every business is that's good business. Like that is to be in the I would say that's not great business, but that is how the capitalist system is set up right now. And you're supposed to be this big bastion of capitalism, and you can't understand that if the company you work for doesn't get paid because of you, do you think you should get paid? Like, I mean,
Well,
you still get money for episodes. There's still
Yeah.
paywall. There's guaranteed money. It's not like that. It's like a contract with the FBI, the NFL,
FBI?
FBI. Yeah, no, the NFL. They
NFL.
get a guaranteed contract for a certain amount of dollars. If you get if you're a wide receiver and you get like 11 touchdowns in a season, you get a bonus. If you hit these certain mile markers, you can get additional bonus money on top of that. So you're in charge of your salary, so to speak. They don't guarantee that whole amount. And maybe the problem with is the verbiage. His contract maybe shouldn't have said 50 million, but you get penalized and not paid for these things. It should say this is your base. On YouTube videos, every episode that is monetized, you get an additional bonus or something. I know it sounds stupid, but it's like, to build it in, I don't think he would have had any legs to stand on if you think about it that way. But it's the same concept to me. So
a lot of
last
YouTubers.
words.
One more thing, a lot of YouTubers that I watch, they use clips from it's fair use, but they use clips from movies and things like that as they're talking about it. And they said this video is probably going to get demonetized. So what I'd like to do is talk about a particular product. I'd like all you guys, or my Patreon, I want you guys to go there and on that, and send me money, and that'll, because I'm giving you content that you wanted, even though YouTube didn't like it, you did. So please show me your support. The thing is, though, he has when he's by himself, yeah, he's not making as much as Daily Wire people, but he's, like I said, he's got that parachute. He's got Rumble or some other thing. Some other YouTubers, I think, are they put their eggs in multiple baskets. So if they are demonetized, you can go to this other thing to see their content, or you can send byproducts, or you can send money to Patreon. But Daily Wire is like, no, this is our bread and butter. It's almost like I don't know if they
No, they
are on
don't.
Rumble.
That's why they ask him to do 6 ad breaks in the middle of his thing, because they know it could get demonetized, but you still have alternate revenue streams. That's why he gets some portion of his money is guaranteed, because they do have advertisers. That's why they have people making
that's
documentaries.
good.
What is a woman? They do all these things. So yes, they have built in this whole thing. So what is he complaining about? Like, that's the part that I don't understand. What are you complaining about? You have guaranteed
I think he's
parts
been on
of
his
your
own
contract.
too long.
I don't know.
He
But
needs to be on his
anybody,
own.
last words
He's
before
too,
we do our last
solo.
topic.
He's a solo artist. He just stays solo.
Matt, any parting thoughts on this topic?
No.
No, Dad?
It's probably helped the cause. When this blows up, people go like, "Who's Ben Shapiro? Who's Steven Crowder?" And it's like Paul saying, I don't care as long as Jesus is preached. You can hate me all you want, kind of thing. So I think that there are people that are going to find them out there just because it's all over the news. So I see it is a good thing. It can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
When there's infighting, it's there's always that chance that it will lead to people choosing sides per se, rather than watching both, or just or saying something bad about one or the other. And then there's always going to be somebody who's going to rally and say, yeah, I know that Ben Shapiro, or I know that Crowder guy, he's, type thing. But overall, all news is good news.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I tend to think of that way too in this situation. But so last, and we're gonna have to make this real short because we've been going long tonight. But Pence, they found classified documents in Mike Pence's office, and so that adds to more of this sort of classified document thing. I think if you probably go to most government, officials, you'd find some classified documents. I mean, so I don't think it's anything too extremely groundbreaking. I would say that it's just the Democrats' opportunity to say, "Oh, Trump and Pence did it," and and try to be like 2 against 1, on this like tit for tat, because it's really hurting Biden's favorability ratings. It's hurting him, and I think that while I do think it's somewhat of a conspiracy theory to think that they purposely found these documents to try to sabotage him, I don't think it's conspiracy at all, and I think it's actually true that he's a weak president, so it's an opportunity for some people, to do this. Jason's faces. Didn't expect that. So, yeah. Any shocks or reactions to the Pence classified documents, Dad?
Yeah, we talked about this last week, that it is it's sad that we've got to the point of it being too many things are classified or overclassified, that they're not being taken seriously. Also, I did hear someone talking about the fact that somehow the rules were changed about classified stuff. Yeah, classified. Wow, really working on that word, wasn't I? But classified stuff, the rules were changed for Trump, and now Biden's caught up in it. So again, I hadn't heard about that. I don't know the details about that, but somehow something, rules were changed, and then Trump was caught up in it. But each of those three responded differently. Trump,
Yeah.
Belligerent.
fought against it, did his usual, just
Throw
give
something
everybody,
against the wall until it sticks.
yeah, just grieve everybody about it. Biden is like, duh, it was secure.
trust
What are you talking
me.
about?
Just
Yeah,
trust me.
yeah.
Buy my
And then
Corvette.
Pence
Duh.
goes like, oh, yeah, some stuff has been found here too. I'm trying to be, a guy with integrity, and and so each one's personality played, into it as well. But I do think that it's an issue that needs to definitely be looked at. What's classified, how it's going to be handled, what's going to be done about it, because in the end, I don't think any of these guys are going to end up in jail or paying the $10,000 in 5 years imprisonment that I had to sign away my life for, when I was at the Pentagon. So, yeah, it's not going to happen to them, because they're in opposite parties, and each party is going to defend their own. If it was just Trump, they'd try to get him in jail. If it was just Biden, et cetera. So, but something needs to be defined and put on track, so that it's, because you have the guy that, I forget who it was, that put classified documents down in his socks or something, and take them out of, a meeting, classified meeting. So, we have real people that are purposely stealing documents that we have to be able to prosecute, and have that fear in people that handle classified documents, and that same level of fear for the people who can go get their hair cut during COVID when the rest of us can't. We need to put the fear of God in those people who think that they're different than we are.
Yeah.
But it has to make sense too.
Yeah.
Rules for thee and not for me, Matt.
Somebody suggested possibly the use of like RFID tags or something like that on these documents, so that we can actually track where they go, or like when they leave a building and things like that. Seems like that could be problematic as well. But like there feels like there should be a methodological solution to this problem as well. The other possibility would be just literally never making a physical copy. So you have the physical copy stored somewhere. The physical copy never leaves. But we'd have to have really good security on our electronic things for that to work. So I don't know. It just feels like there's a better solution to this. But in the in the grand scheme of things, I feel like our national security is probably not compromised by the three people who are on the news. I feel like it's a nice little distraction.
Although, if I'm Russians now, I'm gonna rent the house as soon as a senator leaves it. Every senator that
Every
leaves,
time.
every vice president that has an office, I'm renting it right after them for a month because I'm going to go
Just-
through the
just
the
stage
trash,
innocent
look in the closets,
break-ins.
check out the
Yeah.
Corvettes.
Innocent break-ins, hire homeless guys to go in and stumble out with a couple of random things.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
knew that people kept this much classified information in very easy to accessible places? So, Jason, do you
Yeah.
have any last words?
Oh,
We're
but it
gonna
had a
wrap up
lock.
for the night.
I can understand how somebody might have some documents in their home or behind their Corvette, so to speak. But the thing is, the thing that got me kind of interested is I was like, okay, look, we know a lot about the corruption with using inside information that even Hunter Biden and all that kind of stuff. And he was staying in the house where that classified information was, and he was giving $50,000 a month in rent, which is a little bit suspect. I mean, who would charge their son $50,000? I mean, 2,000 maybe, but not 50,000. It just sounds like slush fund. But again, that's a whole nother subject. But I just think that the fact that the different information was where it was, the stuff from back when he was in the Senate, that's a little stinky. I mean, if you think about, yeah, I can understand, the former president having stuff, the former VP stuff, but stuff back from when he was in the Senate, that stuff was not even supposed to leave the skiffs and those secure locations, skiff locations. So it's skeezy all around, but all these people are skeezy.
Yes.
Easy
yes,
like
yes,
Sunday
yes.
morning.
Skeezy like Sunday morning.
Yes. All righty. Well, I appreciate you all today for doing this, and for the viewers for sticking around for all this. We will see you next week, and we'll have a lot more for you. I don't know where I put the little. All right.
I actually did a pretty
Cool.
good impression of it, I thought.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. That was a good episode. That was a longer one than normal, but it was
Yeah.
good.